All right, good morning and welcome everybody to the Never Stop Healing podcast. This is your host of the day, Cade Archibald, and really excited to dive into today's topic. I am joined with none other than Regan Archibald. Regan, how's it going this morning?
It's going awesome.
Beautiful. Well, we had a really cool Health Accelerator challenge last night that we went through. If you're not a part of our Health Accelerator community, check us out. Go to acueastwest.com/hack. That's HAC. And this is where we will dive into different challenges on how to accelerate your health. So last night's challenge, so it's a new year. Welcome to 2023, everybody. But the challenge for this next week is figuring out, setting some goals and figuring out what kind of muscle, where you want to build some muscle on your body, and then figure out what exercises you need to do. So Regan, I busted out. I did my typical push-ups. I did those side squats you were talking about.
Coxsackie squats.
But I got my glute burn on, as well as I got like some chest and arms with my bands. So I'm pretty good this morning. Had a cold shower. I'm ready to rock the day. So we're going to continue this for the rest of my life. This is my normal routine, my morning routine. But I really was trying to isolate those muscle groups. It's kind of interesting.
It's awesome, isn't it? Because the real challenge was burn out a muscle group. So yeah, think of what part of your body you'd like to change, and then it's called hypertrophy. So you want to push your muscles until failure. And so mine this morning were squats. And I ended up doing about 148 air squats or something like that. I was outside, so I just added that onto my workout, and it was great in the freezer.
You say 148 air squats?
Let's see. I did 88 and 52. So whatever 80. I guess that's 100. 88 at 52 is 130. So
well, that's
a little less.
That's some solid air squats. You got
some solid air squats.
Nice work. Well done.
Yes. Well, and today we're going to just keep going on this thread as promised last night. And we're going to just talk about some of the most important things you can do in this new year to put on muscle mass, and actually some of the reasoning behind it. Because if you think about muscle, and we shared this last night, but muscle mass makes up more of your body volume than any other organ system alone. And I'll share an image with everybody who's going to be watching our YouTube video, because it's kind of interesting. If you look at the way our bodies are structured, our muscle mass and our muscle tissue itself is, in my opinion, it's one of the most important organs in the body. And so if you look at how much muscle mass the average person has, or the healthy person, you're going to have 45% of your muscle tissue, if you're male, be muscle, 45% of your whole overall body weight. So that's massive. If you're female, then a healthy amount would be 36%. You look at the essential fat, so you don't want to go below this. And I know some people really want to strive for no fat, but we need essential and non-essential fat. So the essential fat is 12%. The non-essential fat on average is 15% in females. 12% of essential fat's female. And then in males, the essential fat is 3%. And then 12% of non-essential, or what is called storage fat. And then our bones, a lot of people say, oh, I'm big bone, but that's just not proven to be true necessarily. Our bones actually are pretty light. And, in females, the bone density and the weight that makes up for the bone mass is 12%, in males is 15%. And then all the other organs in your body, like your liver, your heart, your kidneys, your brain, those make up 25% of our body weight. So muscle tissue, as we spoke about last night, is it's the largest volume of largest amount of mass that makes up your overall body weight. And not only that, there's some important features to it. And so today, the answer is to the questions that you'll get are, why do we have this obesity epidemic, and how can we talk about it in a way that's more meaningful, instead of focusing on fat and focusing on weight loss? Maybe it's just due to this fact that you've got a muscle deficiency, and we're going to talk about excess and deficiency. So we have a fat excess and a muscle deficiency. If you just look at it purely from the way that our bodies are structured, and it changes the conversation, instead of being the other question we'll answer is what's worse, skinny fat or just fat? And so we'll jump into that. And then we'll also talk about some of the immune building properties of muscle. We'll talk about sarcopenia, and some of the main peptides we're going to cover today will be sarcotropin, ipamorelin. We're also going to be talking about tesamorelin and ipamorelin again, stacking that with tesamorelin. And then some of the favorite ways to increase the mitochondrial health in the muscle by activating the mTOR pathway with some awesome MOD-SC and 5-amino-1-MQ. So we've got a lot to cover today, but first, as we jump into it, Cade, we talk in functional medicine a lot about optimal and suboptimal, and so if you think about optimal levels, and you think there's an above and a below. If you look at a functional medicine profile, and actually maybe I'll share with everybody where this all starts. There's going to be 2 tests that we're going to be recommending everybody has done at the beginning of the year. And one of those is getting your functional blood chemistry. And Cade, what would you say the biggest benefits of functional blood, when people get their functional blood chemistry profile?
It's giving some of the biggest benefits. It just gives you a roadmap. First of all, it gives you a snapshot of where you're currently at. And then there's the really cool thing about a functional blood chemistry report is, especially the ones that we're running right now, is they have different, it's a color sequences, but it'll point you to where you can focus your intention, your energy on what type of nutrition, what type of supplementation, peptides, all these different things that really can point to specific directions of how you can take your health to another level, rather than, traditional blood work of just saying, oh, well, you have X disease or condition, or everything looks normal and just keep doing what you're doing, when there's actually some things that are trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this gives you an image for those of you who are listening to this. You can see there's a yellow and a red and a pink range. And I had a patient earlier this week who was referred over to us by his primary physician. And the reason why is because he had such severe sleep apnea. He's trending towards diabetes. His doctor told him he was pre-diabetic, but then when we ran deeper panels, we found out that he was, in fact, he was pretty much type 2 diabetes was in his blood work based on how his C-peptide and his insulin markers were looking. They weren't ran at the doctor's office, just his glucose and hemoglobin A1C were. And this is not the patient, by the way, but once we ran the right tests, we found, holy smokes, his pancreas was so beat up. And there's a reason why he was 55 pounds overweight. And he put about 30 of those pounds on in the last 6 months. And he was hungry all the time. He was sweating and then pee all night. His uric acid levels were at 9. So, he was knocking on the door of gout, and he said, holy smokes, I had a gout flare up about 10 years ago, and it was the worst. And so he's really grateful that we got on top of that. But one of the things that gets missed in most of you when you go to conventional medicine is the real focus is on the symptom. So if the symptom is just lose weight, then the treatment is always eat less, exercise more, and let's get rid of the fat. And so we created these fat-free diets. We have all these, kind of, now you got ketogenic diets, you got paleo diets, you've got all these different diets, and the focus is let's lose weight. But rarely do you see let's put on muscle. And so we created a tool. Dan Sullivan hit me up last year about this time, and he said, hey, I want to know what a healthy 100-year-old could be doing. What would a fit 50-year-old do that a healthy 100-year-old could do? So he wanted these exercise protocols that he could focus on when he's 100 years old. And a lot of the exercises are also diagnostic, and it's called the Fit 50 benchmarks. And so if you guys don't have that tool, go to thepeptideexpert.com, and you can download our free bundle, and you'll get that Fitness 50 at age 100 tool. And I'm going to encourage you guys to look at look at the 3 categories. Are you in the fit category, the fitter, or the fittest category? And really this year, set a goal to get into the fittest category in as many of those 11 exercises as you possibly can. But as you do that, also make sure that you're working with somebody who can help you get muscle mass put on. So this is where we added Tristan to the team last year. And Tristan's just been phenomenal at helping our patients actually squat, and they never thought they'd be able to squat again, and deadlift and have upper body strength. I mean, we had one of our patients, Roger, when he first came to see us, he can barely walk without a cane, and now he's carrying kettlebells up and down the hallway, and he's doing phenomenal. And so we see these big changes, but it all starts by looking at those areas of the body that we say no death by neglect. So this is where the functional blood chemistry comes in. You can look at markers from an above optimal or below optimal range. You look at above standard or below standard. So the red are what will show up in a conventional, medical test. And then the alarm is where there's a crisis and something needs to be done. And so, we're going to look in depth at your blood sugar markers, because if you think about muscle mass, the largest repository of insulin and glucose utilization happens in the muscles. And so your muscles send a trigger to your entire body. If they are insulin resistant, if your muscles aren't growing and they're actually in a catabolic state or a shrinking or an atrophy state, then what happens is it sends a signal to your entire body that your body's inflamed, your body's in danger. And so your entire functionality and your metabolism all slows down and you stop thriving. Whereas on the reverse is your muscle mass starts growing, you become more insulin sensitive. And actually one of the interesting studies that was conducted about 20 years ago, they found that just by putting 15 pounds of muscle on type 2 diabetics, virtually every single diabetic, over 95% of these diabetics were enjoyed and experienced reversal of their diabetes just by putting muscle mass on. So your muscle, if you look at it, it's an organ that is very sensitive to glucose utilization. And one of the things that happens if you have high levels of stress, then our liver goes into this catabolic state called gluconeogenesis, and it starts breaking down muscle fibers, specifically in the glutes and in the legs, to combat the stress hormones so that you have sugar in your blood all the time. So even if you don't eat any sugar, you can still have dysregulation in your blood sugar based on the amount of stress you have in your body. So it's pretty critical to get the muscle mass. And one of the reasons we're talking about this before we get into some of the strategies it's the most important thing you can do for longevity is to build muscle mass. And actually, one of the studies that was referenced just last year is they found that in cases of all-cause mortality, you could predict somebody's death based on the amount of muscle mass that they had. And as we age, our muscles start to wither. And that's one of the things that we have to do is use gravity to our advantage and start resisting the universe's desire to recycle us, or giving death no assistance, and start pushing back. And that's where resistance training becomes so critical. Especially the older we get, the more important it becomes to start lifting heavy weights. And so, Cade, what's your experience when you do tend to lift weights? What's that like for you?
So the experience, typically just feel a lot more energized. Obviously feel stronger. Maybe immediately right after you just feel completely weak, but that's the whole point. You're just stressing out those muscles to the point of exhaustion where they actually start building on themselves. So it's that hypertrophy process is a really cool one. Yeah, and it's a great way to build things up. And so step number one is, make sure you get your blood work ran. Make sure you work with a professional. Think of your body as your most valuable asset. And so sometimes we say, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, or I can't afford this. But step number one is make sure you get a movement assessment. And that's something we can take you through here at the clinic, so that we put the right treatments in front of you. Step two is make sure you get your blood work ran as well, because looking at things internally, muscle doesn't build itself without nutrients. And so if you're young, and you see professional athletes, in working with some, NFL players and hearing what what they eat, even NBA players, college athletes, the diet for 95% of those athletes is really poor. But if you look at an athlete like Tom Brady, he was one that's been working on getting the right nutrients in his body, and he's had one of the longest careers in NFL history. No one's got more Super Bowl rings. I don't know, how many records does Tom Brady hold, Cade? I have no clue, but it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys could Google that. And I mean, it's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. But a lot of that is the way he takes care of his body. And I've seen so many patients in my career that take better care of their house, or they take better care of their car than they do their body, which to me doesn't make sense, because, how often are you in your house? Well, if you're sleeping in your bed, let's say the majority of the nights, and then you're leaving for work. If you don't work out of your house, you're probably in your house at least 50% of your time. And then you're in your car, maybe 10%, depending on how often you commute or take road trips. But you're in your body 100% of the time. And so one of the best ways to support a really healthy body is to build up muscle mass. And instead of focusing on fat loss this year, we're encouraging everybody to say, hey, it's just look at it as an excess or a deficiency. And if you have excess amounts of fat, you've got a deficiency of muscle. And so the whole goal is, let's get your muscle mass built up, because then you'll start converting that fat into muscle, and you'll start metabolizing it. And so there's very easy ways of doing that. And some of these are getting on the right peptides. So let's talk about some of the best peptides for building muscle mass. And I'm going to share our new peptide handbook. So if you guys don't have this peptide handbook, we do offer it as a free download on our website, either AccuEastWest.com or thepeptideexpert.com. And you can download the peptide handbook. And this is where our goal is for everybody to be an expert in peptides, because these are natural secretions in your body. So the way that I look at peptides, as they are a bypass or an easy way for you to maximize massive amounts of health and vitality and by getting your cells to start communicating in a way that they did when you were younger. And so these peptides, we included some of the major ones in here, but one of the peptides that is powerful for muscle mass and athleticism is this peptide that's actually considered more of a small molecule, but it's called 5-amino-1-MQ. Now, this is a peptide that was discovered out of the University of Texas in San Antonio. I believe it was 2017. And they discovered that this turns off the NNMT fat storing pathway. So it actually helps shrink fat cells and helps those stubborn deposits. Andy had a funny term last night for the arm fat. Do you remember that, Cade? The Flebidubidus. Flidubidus. Andy's right here. Flidubidus. So here's Andy.
Yeah.
And so what are flidubitors?
Okay, so flidubitors are the nasty thing that kind of happens after age 50. If you're not watching for it, it's this bit under here. And I'm not going to show you it.
Okay, so there you go, the flebdubitors. And I must have missed that anatomy class when I learned the name of that, but it's, so if you use 5-amino-1-MQ and then AOD 9604, you can apply it topically to the area, and that will melt the fat away. And we'll explain AOD 9604 in just a minute. But the beautiful thing about this 5-amino-1-MQ is when you're building muscle mass, the muscles are a mitochondrial generating machine. And so if you think about how can I power up the mitochondria, then you're going to start the engine of the cell and you'll start burning fat much more efficiently. And that's what they discovered in 5-amino-1-MQ. They found that it not only did it reduce fat storing, it shrunk fat cells, it also reduced the risks of diabetes, arterial sclerosis, kidney, liver, and cardiovascular disease. And it lowered cholesterol by 30% after 16 weeks of use. The thing I love about 5-amino-1-MQ as well is it works on the sirtuin pathways. So you get more AMPK and NAD production. So a little hack that you can use with 5-amino-1-MQ is you can do your 5-amino-1-MQ, which it's oral, and usually we have you take 1 pill per week for 1 week. And then the second week, you go up to 2 pills per week. And then you go up to 3 pills until it's gone. And you'll feel this just nice surge of energy because it's turning off that, it's turning off the aging pathway and the fat storing pathway and turning on the metabolic pathway. So you actually generate a ton of energy from it. And AMPK and NAD productions increase. And the way you turn up the volume is by adding in NAD injections, or you can use a nasal spray. There's even some great NAD or NAD precursors like nicotinamide riboside that you can do. And make sure on the NAD you're doing it 5 days on, 2 days off. You don't want to do it every day. And that would hold true. There's some wisdom too on any of the peptides that we talk about. You don't want to just use it exhaustively. Like 5-amino-1-MQ, the longest you'd want to use this is about 16 weeks, and then you'd want to cycle off for about a month, maybe 2 months. But the other thing that this does is when you use 5-amino-1-MQ, it also can turn off cancer pathways. So you have greater longevity. Not only is fat an endocrine system of itself. So when you have fat in your body, it's secreting different hormones. So by endocrine, we mean a hormonal system. And that secretion of hormones can be very pro-inflammatory and it can be heavily toxic. Whereas if you have healthy levels of muscle, and think about healthy muscle tissue, it's just as important to have a healthy muscle fibers as it is to have a healthy liver. And I've worked with a lot of patients over the years, and admittedly, I have not put enough emphasis on this organ system called your muscle, and specifically your skeletal muscle is what we're talking about today. But you've got smooth muscle in your colon, in your blood vessels. But both of these are really important. But what happens is when you have good energy into those systems, you turn off the pro-inflammatory markers that trigger cancer and cancerous growth. 5-amino-1-MQ, it increases contractility and stem cell activation. So it's great to use following a muscle injury. It's been amazing for me. I've injured so many different areas of my body, but one of the things that I found is using 5-amino-1-MQ with ARA 290. Not only does it help improve my endurance levels, but I also feel a lot more lightness on my feet. And so it's easier to pick up new sports or new skills. And then the other thing that 5-amino-1-MQ does is it works on the GLUT4 pathways for glucose metabolism. So if you've got insulin resistance, the GLUT4 pathway is something that's triggered where you can take in sugar and glucose into the cell without the presence of insulin. So pretty powerful peptide there. Cade, any questions on 5-amino-1-MQ? Is that too nerdy, or I think people?
No, that was perfect. So best scenario, or when would you typically recommend this in based on someone's goals? Like if they're focused on building muscle, losing some weight, amping up metabolism.
Yeah. So very first thing we would do is make sure that the stress response is as mediated as possible. And so we'll never get rid of the stress response altogether. Actually, that would be disadvantageous, but that's where we'd use like epitalin, Selenk, and we may even want to use like a GLP-1 agonist like semaglutide first, just to wake up the pancreas if they're pretty hardcore diabetic. But then 5-amino-1-MQ kind of in phase 4 or phase 5 is a really good time to utilize it. But if someone's healthy, I'll put this in even in phase 1 because they want to increase their athleticism. So really powerful.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's peptide number 1. Number 2 is AOD 9604. And this is an interesting peptide because you can absolutely use it not only to spot treat because it can be a topical, but AOD 9604, it works on the growth hormone pathways. And so it helps you lose weight while feeling young. It doesn't increase any IGF-1. There's no immune response that's increased. But early studies show that this peptide actually tripled weight loss when compared to placebo in 300 obese individuals. So remember, it's working on growth hormones. So if we're thinking about, I've got a muscle deficiency and I've got an excess of fat, just think about those ratios that we explained earlier. It's like, man, I really would like to get some more lean muscle mass and tissue and really healthy muscles. Well, that's the goal. It's not, let's lose weight. Think about building muscle first, and AOD 9604 is one of the best ways to do it. Even though the AOD is an acronym for anti-obesity drug, well, it's actually, just think of it as working on the growth hormones so that when you're younger, you could tolerate, a low nutrient, maybe high fat, poor fats, by the way, and not the most nourishing diet, and you could still build muscle. Well, as we age, we don't have that luxury. And so, but AOD does help trigger that nice growth hormone response. And what they found is not only does it help you with transitioning out of the fat and letting it go and putting on more muscle, but the other thing it does is it enhances cardiac protection. So it does that through the beta-3 adrenergic receptor pathways. And it also helps improve endurance. And a lot of our patients report sleeping better on it. And so this is a peptide. Typically, you want to do it 5 days on and 2 days off. And so that's AOD 9604. And once again, it can be used topically. Most of the time, this is a sub-Q, but it will help you put on some muscle mass. And it's a very powerful one. All right. So we're not going to, there's so many of these that we could talk about, but when it comes to building muscle, one of my favorites is the IGF-1 and LR3. And you guys have heard this, and really what the LR is just, it's the long reacting chain that is added to the IGF-1, and IGF-1 is insulin-like growth factor, and there's a primary function of it, which is to do the work for growth hormone. And IGF-1 levels, if they get too elevated, that can put your body at risk for different types of cancers. And so one of the reasons we like to use this peptide is because you do get a nice increase in IGF-1, which makes your body much more insulin sensitive. And insulin is the hormone that causes us to put on muscle mass the most. And if IGF-1 is creating more insulin sensitivity, then it's one of the best ways that you can increase the myostatin pathway for muscle growth and recovery. It also, if used appropriately, and by the way, we're using very small doses of IGF-1, and this is another one you do 5 days on, 2 days off. But it also has been shown to be an exercise mimetic because it activates the MyoD protein. And the MyoD protein is what's triggered by exercise, and it's responsible for the damaged tissue that occurs in hypertrophy. So if you think about, when you're burning your muscles out, and that's what we have everyone doing this week, is finding a muscle group that you're going to trigger hypertrophy by burning it out. Well, IGF-1 will help you get there that much faster. So really powerful. And then IGF-1 is also the gatekeeper. It unlocks the gene that allows for BDNF expression and neuroplasticity. And so BDNF is one of the most powerful, it's more like a neurotransmitter in the brain that helps your brain change and adapt and recover. But also BDNF is a substance that helps you feel really good and confident. And it will help you prevent kidney and liver disease. It wards off dementia. It also controls inflammation and turns off autoimmunity. So IGF-1 is powerful. And Cade, I've shared this story before, but when I first tried IGF-1, I think it was like 4 years ago, and that's when you got your first like crazy boat with the wake surfing behind it, and I just felt so limber on the IGF-1. I just felt younger. But I was able to pick up wake surfing with you much faster than I think I would have otherwise.
Yeah. I think it's a super powerful peptide. That combined with the CJC 1295 was my first experience with some of these peptides as well. And I just remember like the strength and kind of like oomph that you feel with it is awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice.
That's the best way I can explain it. I know it's not a really articulate way, but oomph, that's the way I can articulate it the best.
Some oomph. Nothing wrong with having a little throttle at your disposal. Yeah, so IGF-1 LR3, that's another one to really help support muscle growth. And then one of the peptides, Cade mentioned this earlier, the CJC 1295. CJC 1295, let's see, I will, and then we'll talk about ipamorelin, but CJC 1295, a lot of times we'll stack this with the IGF-1 and with the ipamorelin. But CJC is really powerful. It's known to accelerate muscle recovery. It also induces deep sleep waves and resets your circadian rhythm. So this is a common peptide we use in like phase 2 in the Accelerate Wellness program, sometimes phase 3, and then we'll cycle back to it. This is another one, 5 days on, 2 days off, so that you're not pushing that growth hormone pathway too long. And if you want to really get even more benefits, this is where making sure that your first meal of the day is a protein-based meal, and every meal needs to have at least 50 grams of protein in it, or 40 based on your size, but 40 to 50 grams of protein, because there's this amino acid called leucine. And once you get about 2 to 2.5 grams of leucine, then your body gets satiated and you don't have that urge to snack. And if you can get the first meal of your day, get lots of protein in, then that's what's going to trigger your body into this this more anabolic state where you're actually putting on muscle and you're not hungry and reaching for sweet things or snacks. And it avoids us needing to put either duct tape over your mouth or using the shock collar and surveillance camera. So get the protein in the morning.
Much more preferred than the shock collar and duct tape.
It just, it really depends. And if you got a bad mouth, then maybe your mom wants you to put duct tape over it anyway. So ask your mom what's the best treatment, and she knows best.
Perfect.
Yeah. So CJC, it's interesting because most of these peptides are what are called pleiotropic, and that means they're working on multiple pathways. And when you turn on growth hormone, for example, in the body, then your body starts behaving as if it's younger. And remember, every decade of life after the age of 30, our growth hormone starts to drop. And most people these days, the growth hormone at the age of 50 is 50% of where it needs to be from an optimal perspective. And so just by using peptides instead of using a hormone, because the big difference is these peptides are short acting, they're going to act for about 30 minutes. So you don't want to do any like IGF-1 or AOD 9604 or CJC 1295. You want to do it in a fasted state. You don't want to do it around any food. So wait at least 90 minutes before, that you haven't eaten anything, 90 minutes before you use these peptides. And then wait at least 30 minutes until you start eating again. But make sure, once again, if you don't have your foundation built with the right nutrients and the right exercise program, you're not going to get near the benefits. And the other thing that really enhances the benefits of peptides is when you have the right chemistry in your blood. And that's where CellCore is really powerful, because we use this carbon technology to put charged particles into your blood. So it enhances the ability for you to uptake nutrients. And also it cleans out the filtration systems and detoxification pathways in your body. So all those things are really critical. And what's not talked about in muscle building is the fact that you've got to stay detoxified. Because if your liver is not functioning well, it's going to be really hard for you to denature those proteins and start building muscle mass. So CJC is a great way you can do this, because your body's recovery, it's like that old saying is, your workout is only as good as your last recovery. So the benefits you get require you to sleep at night, and getting at least 8 hours is really critical. And then, we talked about mitochondria, and you can use like a red light therapy. I've got one here that Dr. Lawrence gave me. So you can use red light therapy, and you can actually supercharge your muscles that way, because it activates the mitochondria. And if you use that with a little bit of methylene blue, yes, it will make your urine blue and your tongue blue and everything. So you got to be careful with it. But even if you do that with some methylene blue, the nice thing about that is it's a way that you help your muscles recover. So you do that at night. We have this nice face shield that's got the red light. We've got this cool tool from Dr. Lawrence. Many of you in our Optimize program, you've got the red light banks, and those are so powerful. But the other thing that CJC does, if you do it before you sleep great. I like to do mine in the morning because you get a little flushing from it. But that flushing is totally normal. It feels kind of like a niacin flush. And Cade, do you actually like the flushing? It seems like.
I don't know what it is, but that it's kind of a rush to me. It's just feels really nice. It's like energizing. I don't know how to explain it other than it just kind of makes you feel like something's getting activated and working. And so, yeah, it gets me all pumped up and like, oh yeah, we got some action. We got some movement here. It feels
here
good.
We go. Yeah. Cade likes the buzz. It's fine. I like to do it right before I work out. Otherwise it can be a little uncomfortable. But the other thing that CJC does is it helps with the thymus glands. So you get more intelligence in your immune system. And then you always want to combine this with ipamorelin, because sometimes these growth hormone releasing peptides or growth hormone secretagogue can lead to greater levels of hunger. And that's where some of the early versions of the growth hormone releasing peptides like GHP6 or GHP2, people got a really insatiable appetite. But ipamorelin, what it is a somatostatin inhibitor. So you get about 7 times the greater release of growth hormone, but it also tames the hunger. Because growth hormone is released on 2 pathways. One is on the ghrelin pathway, the other is on the growth hormone pathway in your pituitary. But the ipamorelin works on the ghrelin pathway, so you get a better control of your hunger. And it also helps with satiation, and especially if you're eating your protein and you're getting at 40 to 50 grams every single meal, you're filling up your leucine reserves. You're getting about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, of your ideal body weight. You're going to be doing amazing. And then some of the other studies show that ipamorelin can help combat the side effects of steroids or glucocorticoids. So, if you've been on a steroidal cycle, this is really good to combat that. And it also helps treat osteoporosis. So ipamorelin, you'll see this in the tesamorelin formula. You'll see it in the CJC, but it's a powerful way to support lean muscle and endurance and to create a better immune reset. And so the final peptide we're going to talk about is a favorite of many people, and it's sarcotropin. And sarcotropin ipamorelin is unique because it was covered by the FDA to treat sarcopenia. Right now, this is the only treatment that is known medically to help reduce the impacts of sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is when you start replacing muscle mass with fat. And it's a very dangerous condition. And remember, this is all-cause mortality is predicted, and it's reversed with muscle mass. And so if someone's got low muscle mass, their death is imminent. It's coming around the corner. But if you're able to put on muscle mass by reversing the sarcopenia, that's how you can really stay in the game and really win the game for a long time. And so sarcotropin IPA is the way that it works on the brain, it works on the pituitary, and it works on the muscle pathways. But it's got different growth hormone releasing peptide. It's got GHRP2. It's got ipamorelin, but it also has vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and it's got some nootropics like DMAO. And then it's got L-citrulline, L-leucine, L-arginine. So it's got some of these really powerful amino acids to support cardiovascular function. And it's one of the best overall peptides that you can take, and it's liquid. So it's just 4 mLs a day. And you do that, ideally first thing in the morning while fasting, and you'll notice a nice tingling sensation in your head, in your arms, in your feet, because it's stimulating such powerful circulation. So this one's good. And it tastes pretty good too, doesn't it, Cade?
Yeah,
it's not bad.
It's not bad. That's for sure. It's much better than most, especially the you gave me that tincture last time I was up there, the Lang Huang.
Huang Liang, yes.
Huang Liang. Ooh, that leaves a taste.
That one is, Huang Liang is one of the 3 bitters in Chinese medicine. It's one of the most bitter. And that's for excess heat in the body, but it also helps. It's a derivative of berberine. It's nice. It's strong. All right, so I was joking. Sarcotropin was the second to last. I wanted to end on tesamorelin because tesamorelin is not only is this been clinically proven to help reduce fat in the belly, and it's actually FDA approved to treat lipodystrophy in HIV patients. But tesamorelin helps regenerate the liver, and one of the studies they found is with a liver that was 90% fibrotic. Tesamorelin was able to reverse the majority of that fibrotic liver. So if your ALT or AST markers are off, tesamorelin is in your future. And studies have been shown that it, what this does is it can convert that belly fat into muscle. It also, tesamorelin is one of the best ways to increase your good cholesterol, your HDL, and lower your LDL cholesterol. But it also helps with cognitive decline in people over 60. So if you've got mild cognitive decline, tesamorelin with ipamorelin is really powerful. And so, as I said, this is one of the best peptides you can use in your Fitness 50 at age 100 challenges. And so this is a peptide. We always use it with ipamorelin, and it's something you do 5 out of the 7 days. So powerful peptide there. So man, we covered a lot today, and hopefully you guys learn something new when it comes to how to build muscles, some peptides. We're going to have Tristan on either next week or the week after on the podcast and go through in much greater detail on some of the research and clinical trials on what lifting is going to do the best for you, what exercises, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Cade, how'd it go today?
Awesome. Very cool. Amazing content as usual. Thank you so much, Regan. Just to kind of piggyback on that last one, if you guys have followed us at all, tesamorelin, that is my number one favorite peptide. I feel like that just helped with accelerating my muscle development, helped trim down my midsection. It's a game changer. So if you are not part of our Health Accelerator community, check us out. Go to AccuEastWest.com. You can learn a little bit more about that. Request a discovery session. We do a complimentary discovery session with one of our health ascension specialists, and they will take a look at what your goals are and see if there's something we can do to help take your health to the next level. So thank you so much, Regan. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that joined us live today. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.